Welcome back to the Calling here in Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm Tannen Grace. This is Andy Joseph, and we're going to start off with taking a look at the bracket here for this top eight, and then we're going to be going right into that draft for the players. So at home, you can see the strategies that these guys have been using to get themselves into this top eight.
Oh,
And as you
yeah.
see at the top left, you see our number one player been pacing the field the entire tournament. What a performance from Tarek Patel. I don't know what else you can say.
Yeah, I don't know either. Tarek has been so impressive throughout this tournament. It's been great for us, too, to step out of the booth here and talk to him, talk about strategy, talk about what's been going on throughout the entirety of the calling here in Cincinnati. And I'm sure he's excited with that number one seed going into this draft.
Yeah, 13-1 coming in ninth place last week in Dallas. He's going to be up against Ray Chris. You see that second match there. We've got Andrew versus Michael, another really good matchup. Then we've got Fing versus Riley. And at the bottom, I think the perennial favorite in every tournament that he plays in, and probably the favorite in everybody's hearts at home, Mr. Matt Rogers is going to be up against Eric down there at the bottom. And I know that we've got that viewing party back in New Zealand watching, and they're going to be rooting really, really hard for Matt Rogers. And you know what? We're going to give him a little bit of a nice present because we're going to be watching Matt Rogers draft. And yeah, somebody in my production crew actually was just talking about this. He might have been in 60th place at one point in time and had to run the table to make this top eight here today, showing why he might be considered the best player in the world.
Yeah, we did get to commentate on one of his games yesterday, Tannen, and it was a rough one. He actually lost when he was playing Briar, but then obviously he came back, reverse swept, and here he is in the top 8 in the draft pod here. Very exciting, and I'm super excited to watch such a high-level player draft. This is like the highest level that we can watch, honestly, for this Tales of Aria draft, so I'm excited to get into it here.
I'm ready to learn something from it. You at home's probably ready to learn from something from it as well, so let's go ahead and get that draft started.
Absolutely. All right, so pack one, pick one, the favorite time for many drafters. I know me, myself, I love opening a pack and just going, what am I taking here? It's one of the favorite moments. We got Matt Rogers here.
Yeah, looking through the pack, doing a really good job of like sorting the cards here. This is something that's important. You want to see like how many lightning cards are in here, how many earth cards, how many ice cards, what's going to come back. Hopefully he sits back a little bit. There we go, Matt. Thanks for helping us out a little bit.
Yeah.
Sit back in your chair, relax, take a load off. Make sure we can see the cards. But,
absolutely.
We're going to see what he favors. Talking to him beforehand, he's like, I'll take Briar if it's shipped to me, but I'm perfectly comfortable drafting Lexi. I'm perfectly comfortable drafting Oldham. And you see him kind of going through the cards here. I really love the way that he's organizing this. He's trying to see. Oh, there we go. Get surround sound
angles,
view.
Yeah.
Love it.
We got angles. We got
angles. We got cameras. Let's see what Matt Rogers' first pick's going to be. Have you seen any card that's really caught your eye here?
I see the Honing Hood there. I think that puts you into Lexi, but he's going to go with the Earthlore Surge, it looked like, as a pack one, pick one, which is a good card, right? You want to stay open. The fundamentals when it comes to at least Tales of Aria, you want to focus on perhaps in elements that can lead you into two situations, two different decks. But if you open a bomb, you might want to take that early and see if you can take that away from the table. Other than that, it's really important to just kind of like stick with your fundamentals and draft the elements early, I think.
Absolutely. It's a card that could bring you into two different heroes, and you see him kind of looking at it here. He's looking at the Oldham cards. He's looking at the Briar cards. Decent piece of equipment here as well. And like we've been talking all weekend, if you want to get equipment, you've got to pick it up early.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to get those difference makers. So he's pulling all the Rune Chant hero cards to the front. A couple of the Oldham. Now, this looks like there's a lot of Rune Chant cards in here, but there is a Snow Under. I see a Strength of Sequoia. Let's see here.
Some
what
good
else?
Runeblade hero cards here, but he might be thinking about this Code of Frost legitimately here as a card to take early on because, at a table like this with all these very strong drafters, those are going to dry up really, really quickly. You might see some later in the draft when things are wheeling after everyone's already got their equipment, but I don't know if that's something that a high-level player is willing to risk. So considering taking the Frost here and then a couple other cards at the top of the deck as well. So let's see what Matt decides to take here in pack one, pick two. He is going to go with the Code of Frost. So taking the equipment early can be played in both Briar and Lexi and Oldham. So it's leaving him open yet again to two different decks.
Absolutely. He's open to all three different decks technically here right now, but he's got a couple cards for a specific one. So let's see. This is where you're really going to start to see where you should be, what lane you should be. Picks 3, 4, 5, 6. You're going to see, oh, there's a ton of lightning cards back. Oh, there's not a lot of lightning cards back, which let's talk about this. We've got a Press in here. We've got an Electrify. We've got a Rights. Lots of cards in here that do arcane damage, and we've talked about it in the set. That's a big thing that's really hard to stop. We see a Rotten Old Buckler.
Yeah, he's putting that to the top, which I agree with. I think it's definitely consideration. Glacial Footsteps and Frostfang as well. Frostfang is a pretty solid ice attack, and Glacial Footsteps we've seen close out a couple games here. But the Buckler is something you might consider taking early. Just because it's very powerful. Rights of Lightning in hand as well. Thinking about staying open to a Briar. Not sure when he's going to decide to pivot. The buckler is a really solid pickup after this piece of equipment, right? Because he's also leaning like he could play old time, so setting himself up early with that deck. But that is a pick that puts him in one direction. It did look like he took a glacial there, but then regretted it and took it back. So he's thinking now, do I want the glacial? Do I want the buckler? Either one in his hand. I think he might go with the Frostfang. Okay, interesting. So he decides to go with neither of those first two picks and stay with the Frostfang. Stay a little bit more open because that deck can be played in Lexi as well. So it's quite a good choice from Matt Rogers there.
I think you nailed it right there. Glacial Footsteps puts you into one hero, while Frostbank keeps you open for possibly, two. Along with some of his first picks here, he's got that Code of Frost, he's got that Earth Lore Surge, so he's staying open as much as he possibly can. We are seeing a powerful rare in this pack. There is a Sigil,
Sigil
in this pack, and that's a 4th pick Sigil. We're counting arrows here from
Sigil,
Matt as well.
Not the best Sigil to get, but, dealing that Arcane as a defense reaction is always powerful, right? It can close out games, and it's just, in general, just a nice piece to have for Briar. So we got Matt thinking about that here.
Yeah, I love how the scope at which that he looks at these packs. Everybody at home, you could learn something from this. He's looking at, a total of 6, 7, 8 cards a lot of the times, because what he's doing is he's trying to get an overall feel for the pack and what's most likely to come back around, not just what he's picking.
Right, and shuffling through these is a good way to kind of, see what triggers your brain as far as what's a top pick as well, right? If you sit there looking at 1, 2 cards over and over again, you're likely gonna get used to seeing those. But if you open it, essentially open the pack several times by shuffling through them there, then you're setting yourself up to maybe react again. And the reaction from your gut or maybe from your fundamentals or your draft history, good way to kind of indicate where you want to go. We do see Suckcliffs here though, and a Bramble Spark.
Yeah, so that was a Snow Runner. They took 4th pick here, and this might be leading to a tiny bit of regret, or hey, this is kind of a signal here. We've got those blue suede shoes, as I like to call them. Yeah. We've got a Bramble Spark. These are cards that are very high on some pick lists for some of the top players. Matt Rogers, Tarek Patel, some of these players sing the praises of these cards all day long. Speaking of that, I think Tarek Patel's actually passing to Matt Rogers in this draft too. And
wow.
That might sound like a bad thing. That's actually something I look forward to at high-level drafts. I want the better players to be passing to me. You usually get better signals and your decks get better.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point you raised. And something that I love as well in high-level draft environments is that you can read your signals a little bit more clearly, right? Some more inexperienced drafters may be passing you things, sending signals that might confuse you or throw off your draft when you're trying to read a table and decide what lane you want to pick. But if you're playing and drafting with a great player all around your table, then you're more likely to end up seeing those signals early on.
Absolutely, and all these players have been playing great this weekend as well. All of them have earned their spot here. Cards that stick out here. There is a Honing Hood, even though we're not in Lexi, but that's kind of a great card that you can maybe wheel if you're the only one. I see a Sigil in here.
We're considering the Sigil here again.
Yeah, look at the Sigils getting moved to the front.
Always tempted by the Briar, I think, right? Honing Hood's still in the pack as well.
And, he talked to this. There's an interview that will probably air at some point in time today where he talked about his strategy into the top 8, and he said that, he's comfortable with all the heroes, but if you can get it, he wants the Briar deck. Like if you don't have a Briar, if you don't have a Briar within the 1, 2, or 3 people to your right or left, depending on passing you can get what he calls the nuts. A lot of us talk about that. That's the best possible. So and I think he picked up the Sigil there, right?
Yeah, he did take the Sigil. Still thinking about it. He did have a change of his pick earlier, but he is going to end up taking the Sigil of Suffering there just to kind of stay open to the idea of getting that Briar deck going.
Yep, so doing a very decent job of staying open, and I kind of like the way he's been going, too, because, we're not seeing, we're seeing a few arrows in the pack, but I'm not seeing cards that really, really make me want to play Lexi here.
No, not yet.
Yeah, and he's been staying, he's got a couple Oldhim picks, but it looks like he's been shifting a little bit towards Runeblade here. We see an Arcanic Shockwave make its way to the front. I think you know about this. I am a big fan of cards like that in this set. I might have it a little higher in my pick order than most people, but I really like the super cheap attacks that also get in Arcane and lead to the explosive attack with 2 or 3 card turns. I really like pairing this with cards like Electrify, which we've seen be going around the table quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I just love the free cards that attack super easily, and then you get the cards from your arsenal that either get buffed or draw a card. If you can get those 4, 5, 6 card turns where you're actually playing those cards and not pitching them for resources, they can win you games. Ooh, this is a great card here.
Yeah.
Yeah, being open. Gotta love seeing a generic equipment this late.
Yeah, I gotta. And I think people are still just staying more open here to what's going around the table. Cracker Jacks can be played in every single deck, so it is a consideration. It's great in old time. We saw it played before a Thump before, which gives it Dominate, and that's quite strong. It's a good line of play. And I think Matt's just going to go ahead and snag the arm equipment early on here. Nothing too extreme in these packs that's pulling him in any other direction, so take the equipment early.
Yeah, Cracker Jacks. Huge card for all the different heroes. Like you said, very good at pumping Thump. Great card in Oldhim. Just good for getting extra damage through with Lexi on your dominated arrows. Make sure you get those on-hit effects.
Yeah.
And then same thing for any of the other lightning, Briar stuff. Any pump on Briar is great as well because you're usually going a little wide. You want to make sure this gets through for an on-hit effect, or that you can get to those big-time break points that we talk about. Getting to 4 and 5 versus Ultim is very important. If you're always attacking for 3, you're not really going to be getting anywhere.
Absolutely. So we're seeing a bunch of I think we're seeing some Guardian cards here that Matt's thinking about, right? He just took an Entangle, I believe. So that's going to be, he's starting to think, if he can end up in Oldhim, I think that's a pretty comfortable place to be in. And I'm sure that he's comfortable piloting that deck and seeing at the end of this pack where he wants to go.
Yeah, and that last pack was very much a Guardian pack. Really good point there. So that's why he's thinking about that, taking a Guardian card, because he's like, if there's this many Guardian cards left in this pack, some of the ones that I passed earlier might be making its way all the way back to me. So if he's going to end up in that, he wants to make sure that he's still got enough playables out of pack 1. But it looks like we're going to stick to our guns here, take a Singeing Steel Blade.
Yeah, over the Bramble Spark, interestingly. But Singeing Steel Blade, just an easy attack to get off. And it's also just a good blue to pitch, right, and block with. So it's a nice card to pick up here. Guaranteed arcane damage is never bad, so happy to see that.
Oh, wow.
Thinking about a second one here, another Arcanic Shockwave as well. So good cards, it looks like, for both Oldhim and Briar. Might be the more open lane for him at the end of pack 1, so maybe decision time on which way we want to go. Looking at the Briar card, so speaking about your strategy you mentioned earlier, he wants to end up in the Briar deck. He didn't see any of those insane cards, but he is going to go ahead and lean towards that at the end of pack 1, see where we go from there.
Yeah, he's going to be rounding out these last 2 picks. The Singeing Steel Blade, oh, that is huge. You can see the kind of reaction here. Oh, my. And this right here, this is when this is confirmation.
Yep.
This is when you're like, I should be here.
Yes,
right, so
that's definitely one of those moments in the draft where you get that confirmation, like you said, and you start to see Matt get excited that he's getting this last end of the pack picks of Sigil of Suffering, even though it's a blue. I'm sure he's happy to see that. That is a red emerging Avalanche, which is quite good as well for Oldhim, but I think he's thinking about this Rejuvenate, which is fine in any deck, but maybe the last cut potentially, especially in Briar. So we'll see. Last couple picks here, and then we'll head into pack 2 shortly.
Yeah, generally not too much going on in your last 3 picks, but sometimes you can get some extra confirmation on, yeah, this is wide open, that's not. There's going to be some arrows flying around usually at the end here.
Yeah.
Invigorate picked up, not too important for what he's got going on here. He looks like he's going to be trying to get into this Lightning Briar deck, a lot of Singeing Steel Blades. We did see a Bramble Spark get picked up.
And he gets past a Bolt and Shot blue at the end there. He's going to take a moment to review his cards and think about which direction he wants to go. And he's got several Singeing Steel Blades and Sigil of Sufferings now, so he's got to be happy with the direction of his Briar pool at least. But he's going to have to rethink the chest equipment that he's got there if he's going to play Briar.
Absolutely. So we look at this. He's got I'd say about 7 or 8 cards that he's like, I could play this in my Briar deck, my he calls it the electric Briar deck, the lightning stuff. It's going there. But then you see up here at the top, he's got 4 or 5 pretty good ice cards that work together. Along with a couple other cards that you're not mad if they make your deck, but you're not super happy about. This Rejuvenate is a card that can make your deck.
Yeah, for sure, it is playable. We saw it played multiple times during Steel Den draft this weekend. It can just keep you going towards the end game, especially in an Oldhim strategy. But I think Matt did a really great job here, staying open at the beginning and end of pack 1, just trying to navigate what was open and seeing these signals, especially the late Sigil of Suffering. That is just sending him in the direction of wanting to go Briar again. So we'll see what he opens, see what he gets past, and we'll go from there. It might be different going in the other direction.
And this is the kind of Briar deck that I like. This is the one that you want to see, where he's got tons of ways to deal arcane damage.
Yeah.
And we've seen that the Briar decks, when they can't deal arcane damage, have struggled at finishing off these games. They can get someone down to, they can get someone down to 6, someone down to 7, but they start, blocking. You're not getting any extra damage because your attacks are generally a little bit smaller on some of the end. So we'll see how much he can pick up here in pack 2.
Really aggro.
Anything you particularly are looking for here?
Yeah, I think I want to get a Bramble Spark early on. The Weave Earth there is quite good. You want to pick up the equipment. He's already there. It is. The Bramble Spark highlights it immediately. Got a Flash Freeze as well, and the Weave. You're gonna look at the Weave and the Bramble. Those 2 cards exactly that I mentioned. Things you want to see. Also equipment. You want to maybe get a Sutcliffs going on early here, and get them nice purple Nikes on. But I think he's happy to just gobble up all of the Runeblade cards early here, kind of send the signal going to the right, no, this lane is not open, and make his way into a potentially busted Briar pool.
And if things work out the way they seem they should have worked out the draft, he should be getting rewarded pretty well in this pack, because he didn't pass a ton of this going to the left. So hopefully no one was forcing it. For Matt's sake, no one was forcing it there. It looks like he's going to be looking at the Weaver or the Bramble Spark. either one of them is going to be kind of great match which way you want to kind of shift yourself. Bramble Spark more on the physical Weaver more on the physical damage, and Bramble Spark guarantees that Arcane, and it does look like that's where he's going. I think that's where my pick would be. I'd be taking the Bramble Spark here.
Thinking about the signals, I'm sure is that he's going to be sending as well. So deciding not to send the Bramble Spark over is a good idea because that just lets the player to the right know that no, this lane for Briar is not open. So he's kind of committing himself here to the Elemental Runeblade hero, which I think is what he wants to do. He does get past the Terra Sunder, though, which is going to be, oh my goodness. Seen this card played so many times and drafted so many times this weekend, but there it is, the red Bramble Spark. Key piece of this deck that is going to get all the arcane damage through, potentially buffs as well on the fusion, so he must be happy to see that.
Seen tons of Flash Fuses and Terra Sunders this weekend. It's almost like they're in every pack, it feels like, but like you said, love taking Bramble Spark again here. These packs have actually been, if he's needed to do it for signaling to his right, these packs have actually been pretty good for it, in the fact that they're not super deep with a ton of lightning cards, so you can see that lightning is gone right away. You see him kind of seeing that when he's fanning out these cards.
Yeah.
The one bad thing about that does mean there's not a lot of good cards for him to wheel. Here.
Right, exactly. There aren't a ton of good cards to wheel. There may be potentially some earth cards. There was a lightning amulet here. Those get gobbled up pretty early, though, so we'll have to see what he does wheel from here. But it is a good feeling knowing that, hey, I'm taking the best Runeblade card out of this pack. There might not even be another Runeblade card. So my person to my right is just going to know, nah, that's not open. I'm not going to stay there.
Yeah, I mean, he's went Bramble Spark in pack 2, right? And
yeah.
Rob Seigel earlier today was talking about, he thinks, it's the new Seeds of Agony.
Oh yeah, it's up there. I think Bramble Spark is an
incredible. Oh, here we go.
Sorcery, one of the best premier majestic Runeblade cards in the set. To just again arcane damage. Boom, love seeing that. Love the art on that card, and love how it plays in these decks. He's just so happy to see this right now.
Absolutely, we saw Tark Patel have this in his deck earlier today and just do absurd things with it on a turn. And this is the deck you wanted, and the ones that have a lot of free attacks, doing a lot of arcane damage. This is a perfect card for Matt. No way I think that is he passing this card. He's just taking his time, looking at this pack. What can he maybe think? Hoping that Entwined Lightning maybe comes back around, something like that. But it does look like the Sting of Sorcery is going to be his pick. I would probably run over to the draft and be like, what are you doing if you didn't take it here?
Yeah. Stir the Wildwood potentially wanting to get wheeled as well. Does care about arcane damage. So, but really, really, really happy to see that Majestic get past his way. Very crucial, especially when you're getting these arcane buffs early on too. So great for him.
And you and I were talking about this. We thought that he would get, possibly set himself up to get hooked up here in pack 2, right? To get rewarded for what's been going on. And I've got to say, he has. Bramble Spark into Sting of Sorcery. I don't know if you could draw it up any better here.
Yeah. And last week at the Calling in Dallas-Fort Worth, we did see the Briar drafters at the table for the top 8 were super, super prominent, right? So there was a bunch of people forcing Briar, and that left Oldhim really open to a one drafter Namvo at the table. So wanting to see what happens here in the Calling in Cincinnati, if we see a difference here, if we see players adjust to that, maybe
really
try and read
point.
these signals, or if we're going to see a repeat where we're going to see a bunch of more Runeblade heroes come out of this table. But right now it looks like Matt is efficiently gobbling up these good Runeblade cards. There is a red Velaflash, though, another potent card for that deck. So we'll see how it goes for the rest of the deck and going into pack 3.
It picks up a Break Ground here. It's a really solid attack card. Really high attack for its cost.
Yeah.
So the turns where he's not going to be going as wide because, we're not seeing stuff like Ball Lightning in his deck yet. So we're not trying to get maybe those huge crazy, but we got huge crazy long combat chains. But we've got a few cards that work well together. Maybe you can get some go again, some arcane damage, and a couple of really big attacks too, because you want to be able to force through against those Oldhim decks that are going to be turtling up against you.
Right. It's also key to take some Earth cards in general, just so you can get that fusion on your Bramble Spark, right? Something you don't want to forget about. You want to get that ratio going as you're drafting. Something to consider and think about as you're drafting these cards. Sure, Bramble Spark's an incredible card, and the arcane damage does get the job done off it alone. But if you can fuse it and grab that extra buff on top of it, it's quite good. So
absolutely. Amulet of Earth pulled to the front here. Matt Rogers, one of those good Earth cards you're talking about. It's going to be able to help pay for some of his turns as well, set up some really big attacks. He's got some good lightning cards behind this as well.
Yeah.
Looks like the lightning route is wide open. Looks like a Stir the Wild One in the back too. Hopefully, maybe that comes back for him. Good Earth card for him in his deck.
It does look like he's going to go for the amulet, though. Pitches well and does help on the defensive and offensive side.
Yeah, absolutely helps trigger Briar's abilities. Make sure that that's a big thing as well. You need to, we talk about this during the games, but while you're drafting, you need to make sure that you can activate your Rosetta Thorn to go for 2-2 as much as possible.
Absolutely, there was an Arcanix there, Arcanic Shockwave, which is another good Runeblade card, but I do like taking the amulet there. Again, the fusions, these are things you got to be considering as you draft. Sometimes you got to let some of those good Runeblade cards go every now and again so that you can guarantee your fusions on your cards. Very important thing for this set in particular.
So tomorrow, getting pulled to the front here, maybe getting considered
Yeah.
from Matt. Little Stir the Wildwood as well. Going to be considering these two cards, which one he wants. So a really powerful card coming out of the arsenal. Just you draw an extra card, return some cards from your discard pile to your deck. Now, Stir the Wildwood is a really big, heavy hitter. You know, we have some arcane damage. We have some ways to fuse. So this is one of your bigger attacks. But it does look like he's going to go with the more versatile card here out of his arsenal. Draw some extra cards and make sure that he has that longevity in his deck for when he's playing against those old-time matchups and stuff where he needs to go really long.
Right. It is a red stir, too, so it is tempting for sure. I know Matt was thinking about that, but he also has seen a couple of those now. Yellow ones, but he's seen a few, right? So he's thinking, I'm going to take this card, potentially good for Briar's strategy in general, give some longevity to the deck, especially if he's playing against some old times, and it's going to hopefully enable him to wheel some of those other ones that he saw, right? So if he's seen a few of those stirs, he's not dying to grab that one where he can take the other card that's going to do well in his deck as well.
Absolutely, and I love this pick here. I was going to say Red Burgeoning, really good pickup, good Earth card. Gets a buff out of the arsenal when you attack with it, but really high base power on that Red Burgeoning as well. So, see, Matt really set himself up pretty well here. He's got a couple of decent cards to go wide with. He's got a couple of decent cards to go tall with. He's got those Earth cards we're talking about. I want to make sure that, you know, we have, triple Bramble Spark right now? Yeah, he's got 3 Bramble Sparks right now, if my notes are correct. You want to make sure that you're fusing those as much as possible for your big turns.
Yeah, and this is another key difference that we see between the sealed gameplay and deck building yesterday as opposed to the draft is he's really focusing more on the Earth side of Briar, right? So we're building Earth Briar more than Lightning Briar, where if you're taking more shockwaves here, Arcanic Shockwaves, you'd want to go more the Lightning route, which he's likely going to take here. And he'll do a mix of it in this deck, but if you have those Brambles, you're going to lean more towards the Earth side. Want to fuse those cards. There is a red Glacial Footsteps here, so he is taking note of that as a card that he might not want to stare down during this top 8 draft here, but he is going to obviously stay to his lane and take the best card, and there's a red Arcanic Shockwave here.
Yeah, he's looking between red Arcanic Shockwave and a yellow Singeing Steelblade. Singeing Steelblade just going to be a good card no matter what, but he's already got multiple copies of that. Arcanic Shockwave has a little higher upside.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what he's looking for here. They're very similar cards in the two, so you definitely, I think, going for the one with higher upside is a really great pick there.
Absolutely. Looking at a Lightning card here, which I think he just has a few of right now. I don't even know if he has any Lightning cards for.
He's got a few, not a ton. I mean, he's definitely more Earth, like you were saying, but this Lightning Surge would be a decent one.
No Bramble Sparks. Would have liked to see some of those, but we're just not. You know, we're feeling in a good spot right now, right? If you're Matt Rogers, I don't know if we're. What are you looking for at the end of this draft? Do you think?
So better equipment.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and maybe a few more of the Earth Entwine cards that help out a lot. Like, here's the thing. I think he's doing pretty well for the season. He's going to get a Stir the Wildwood here. In a Burgeoning, okay, I didn't even see that Burgeoning at first. That's a yellow Burgeoning. It's pretty good as well. I think Matt's deck so far is definitely solid. Like, I wouldn't be, jumping up and down and whooping and hollering, but it seems like he's in a good spot for a Briar drafter, and that's what you're looking for in any of these drafts. If you could find the lane where you should be a Briar drafter, your deck's going to be pretty good. We've been singing its praises all weekend long in Sealed, where it's by far the best hero, but I think in Draft, it's way closer in the fact that Briar might not even be the best. Throw the Wildwood picked up here at the end.
Yeah, right. We see this wheel, like I did mention. He saw a couple of those in this pack, and it's good to see that wheel for Matt Rogers. He did anticipate, I think, seeing some of those come back, and he gets rewarded, right? So he took the cards out of the pack that were powerful, and he gets a couple of those cards back on the wheel, which is always great as a drafter to have that come back around. Last couple picks here in pack number 2, and then we're going to head into pack 3, where we hope to see some bombs
looks
get
like
drawn.
Blue Rites of Replenishment, another card that, if he does go super long and this makes it in his deck, this has some regrowth ability of getting some of those cards out of your discard pile that can help with the really long matchups, if you're playing against a deck like Oldhim.
Right, a theme that we've talked about over and over again with these Earth cards is the longevity of the deck and recursion. Get things out of the graveyard, put them back in the deck. So we like to see that. Looking potentially at hate drafting a card. I don't think he's going to do that. I think he's just going to take the Arcanics here, but he is thinking about, he is going to hate draft the Arrow here.
Yeah, the Arcanic's probably not even going to make his deck at this point, the way it's going. He's pretty Earth-focused.
Right.
So,
going to take the Rejuvenate.
Yeah, I think it picks kind of whatever,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think he's already got 2 Rejuvenates in his deck anyway. Those things go around, get him last picks. likely not going to play it and make the cut. Strengths is Akoya, final pick here in pack 2. We're going to open our third pack in a moment. Matt going to take a second to look at his picks from the first 2 packs here and think about this. He sees these Bramble Sparks. Now he's got to really be thinking about this equipment, right? Sting of Sorcery, one of the most powerful cards in his deck, if not the most powerful card in his deck. But he wants to get this equipment suite going.
Yeah, you were asking me what card am I looking for the most of this. I want a Mark of Lightning.
Yeah, Mark of
Get
Lightning.
me a Mark
would
of
be nice.
Lightning.
Mark would be great, and I want those boots, man. I want those Nikes. I want to be able to utilize those to get to the end of my turn with the Rosetta Thorn, get the arcane damage, get the go again. So I think he's going to want to see that at least in this next part. Maybe a deep blue, right? Pack 3, pick 1 deep blue if nothing else is tempting in that pack. So let's see what Matt opens here. And he's looking like a Briar player, which is exciting. Taking a moment here to review again. All these players in the top 8 must be feeling a little bit of nerves. I don't know. I know Matt at least has experience here at Callings and high-level competitive events, but man, top 8 an event with this with 500 plus people attending here in Cincinnati. And how do you think they're all feeling here at this table?
I think a lot of them are happy to be sitting where they're at. You know, you're very happy to make the top 8, and you know I've made top 8 at big events like this before, and one thing that I've always said, and it definitely happened to me the first time I played, is a lot of players, you know, they're just excited to make it, right? They're like, I just want to make top 8. I just want to make top 8. And they get here, and it's great to be happy, but you're not done yet. You've got 3 more rounds left to win, and sometimes it's almost like subconsciously, mentally, you can just be like, oh, I'm kind of like playing on house money here, you maybe lose focus a tiny bit, and this is not the time to do that. This is the time to hunker down, make sure you get everything right, and that you're doing well. And yeah, you've got to be loving Matt here for that because he's got that experience. And I think Autumn's Touch is a really, really good card to be leading off of here. Really great attacking card. Yellow Autumn's Touch here. It's an Earth card as well.
Yeah, especially with the cards he wants to fuse with. There is also a Mark of Lightning, which is one of the better pieces of equipment in the entire set, right? We've seen it be really powerful here. Some good choices. A Rites of Replenishment there as well. So trying to see how he gets through this first pick here and where he's going to go with that. But yeah, lots of good options here.
We'll see what we can do about the video real quick. We know that it's a little choppy at home. We're going to try to get this fixed up. We're working on it right now. But yeah, definitely picks between those two. Now, Mark of Lightning, great card, but it only triggers off Lightning and Elemental cards, so you have to have enough Elemental things in your cards to attack in your deck to make it really good. I'm a big, big fan of the Autumn's Touch card because of the fact that it is an Earth card and attacks as well. It does look like we're going to probably miss that pick. That's probably where I would have leaned.
The Autumn's Touch?
Yeah, I probably would have leaned Autumn's Touch. Maybe we could have taken the Mark of Lightning as well. I think those are the 2 cards that Matt was looking at and the 2 cards that I would definitely be looking at to take there. It just matters how many Elemental cards. That's not one thing that I actually counted when he was going back through his cards, but it is an important thing to keep track of while you're getting through your decks and you're doing your review period between packs 1 and 2. Overall, I've got to say this. I think his deck's a solid, pretty good B between the first 2 picks. Sorry, I know I'm looking down here, but I'm looking through all the picks that we have written down here from what's going on. And, he's got a bunch of good ways to attack, a lot of ways to buff up his deck so he can go big. He's got arcane damage that we've been seeing. I think overall, how do you think he's been drafting for the seat that he's in?
I think he's been drafting really well. I think in pack 1 he did a great job of staying open the right amount. There's a degree of staying open, I think, in draft that can lead down a rabbit hole, right? It's very, very difficult to draft correctly and the hard way, I like to say, where you stay open enough and you read those signals and then you get into the lane you're supposed to be in. I think Matt navigated that really well, but I am worried in pack 3 after seeing what happened in pack 2 that there are at least 1 or 2 other drafters in Briar right now taking these cards away from him because the quality of cards after pack 1 and in the beginning of pack 2 has kind of dipped really low. In pack 2, pick 1 and 2, he was looking good with the Bramble Sparks, but now he has to get rewarded in pack 3, and I'm sure he's looking to get a bunch of cards that make this deck, that elevate this deck to a place where he's going to be happy with it for sure.
And I think you made a really, really good point. Pack 2 went Bramble Spark, Sting of Sorcery, right? That's an ideal start. I mean, that's amazing. But then it kind of, not dried up, but kind of, went down a little bit in the quality. We're happy to get some of those burgeonings that we did. Amulet of Earth is pretty great in that spot for Matt. But you're looking at maybe, see something like a 5th pick Bramble Spark to kind of cement that, I should be here. This is great. And I don't think you're going to get that from too many of these draft tables because you're going to have so many people. Yeah, it's going to sound like we're actually going to lose the rest of the draft. We're really sorry for everybody at home. We're experiencing some technical difficulties here. A lot of weather going on
Yeah.
right now outside. I don't know if y'all can actually hear that on the stuff, but we can actually hear the weather going crazy outside right now.
Pounding outside, inside of the convention center. We can hear the rain just absolutely coming down.
I'm
here
not
in
worried about that just
Cincinnati.
for the draft. I'm actually worried about my flight as
Yeah,
well.
man.
My flight's already been delayed. I might be stuck here overnight with the amount of weather that we're getting, so it is wreaking a little havoc on some of our electronics today.
All right,
So
man,
let's go.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, we do have the top 8 bracket. We want to take a look at it today. I'm sorry, real quick, so we can take a look at what decks people were in and what they're going to be playing against. And, oh, boy, we had 4 Briar drafters, 2 Oldhim, 2 Lexi. And I think this is kind of like the ideal draft pod, what you're going to see. I think this is a really good representation, especially after what happened last week. And Oldham's getting a little more represented now.
Yeah, for sure. Just seeing 2 though of both Oldhim and Lexi is a little worrying for Matt, right? We just said this. We want to see Matt in his lane get rewarded in Pack 3, and we got to see how that came together in the end here, especially since we haven't seen it.
No, absolutely. The thing that I think I'm most worried about here is when you look at that top, you see Tarek Patel is also in Briar.
Oh, yeah.
He was passing to Matt.
Yeah.
And
so,
go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've seen Tarek pilot this deck so much at this point that it's just, you got to be worried going into this with Tarek piloting Briar, knowing how well he can do with it. So, yeah, definitely, I agree with you there.
Yeah, it's going to hurt each other in the draft, and I think that's actually a problem. And, man, the weather is getting crazy here today. So hopefully, our electronics can stay up to the task of this. Oh, boy, it is storming outside. But
Yeah.
when you see Tarek sitting next to Matt, right, and Tarek is on his right, so he's going to be passing to Matt. Maybe Tarek shifted in a little late. Maybe he's in Lightning Briar, so that would be the best scenario that comes from this, from both of them being in Briar. That's what you hope. With Matt being in Earth, you hope that Tarek is in Lightning, but still, they're going to hurt each other a little bit both ways. So we're going to see the quality of both their decks. If they're going to want to make their way through this top 8 and become the champion of the Calling this weekend, they're going to have a lot of work cut out for them. So we're going to take a very small break. We're going to have a couple players interviews, and we'll be back with some of those coveted matches that we've been talking about in top 8 and see if these players can make their way into the semifinals, the finals, and then be that coveted Calling champion. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with some more Flesh and Blood. Hey everybody, welcome back here to Cincinnati. We're at the Calling. We're getting ready for the top 8. Matt, congratulations on another top 8 in the Calling.
Thank you. Yeah, no, super stoked to be here this time. It's it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. You made a pretty big trek to get here for the last couple Callings. You're going to be in Orlando as well.
Yeah.
What kind of commitment do you have to be able to do that and deal with all the quarantine issues and stuff that you're going to be dealing with after this?
I love the game, man. I don't know what to tell you. Flesh and blood, like this is what I want to be doing, you know? So New Zealand's been in lockdown for a little while, so I've just been working up from home anyway. And I was like, well, I can work from a hotel room in the States. So, but yeah, I just wanted to be a part of it, so.
Well, we're happy that you chose to. It's been great watching you all weekend. Now, you had your back against the wall this tournament. Did you have any kind of strategies coming into it that you stuck to? Did you learn anything new today? Tarek was singing your praises before an interview, saying that y'all learned a lot from each other about this format.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I mean, because we've been in lockdown, we haven't had any limited play, no pre-release, no sealed, no draft. So before Dallas, I hadn't drafted, I hadn't done anything. So yeah, I was really fresh to the format, learning it, even reading a couple of cards in Dallas. And Tarek and Rob have done quite a lot of drafts and have kind of, been in amongst it quite a bit. So I kind of leached a bit of understanding from them, and we discussed a whole lot of things. And throughout last weekend and this, I feel like all of us together have just learned a bunch from this format.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely shown with you all finishing first and third after the Swiss here in the tournament. Now, one quick question now. In the top 8, if you could pick a hero to draft, which one would be your perfect hero?
Perfect hero? I mean, the absolute nuts is just the nutty Briar deck. So like if the 3 people passing to me don't want to play Briar and just want to pass me like, 5th pick Bramble Sparks and stuff, and I get the absolute broken deck, I'll take that. But I'm pretty comfortable on most decks. Yeah, so if you don't get Briar, what are you looking for other than that? I prefer Oldhim to Lexi. Oldhim's definitely my next choice. Yeah, like sort of more the Earth style Oldhim deck. I don't like to just go full fatigue. I like a lot of bigger red attacks, so I can kind of pivot and turn the pressure on them a little bit as well. But yeah, certainly Earth based.
Absolutely. Well, best of luck in the top 8, Matt. Hopefully you get to bring another trophy home today.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Back to the booth.